Hi, this is Peter Schweizer, and welcome to the Drill Down. Well, what a difference a few weeks can make. It just seems like yesterday we were talking about Minneapolis, maybe talking about the Olympics, but then Donald Trump goes into Venezuela and Donald Trump attacks Iran. And he's leading to a situation where we are looking at the remaking of the globe. We're going to unpack the winners and losers today in Trump's foreign policy. And we're going to do that, of course, with the co-host of this program, Eric Eggers. Eric, how are you?
Yeah, speaking of the Olympics, the only team that does worse than Iran's Winter Olympics team is apparently its military.
Yeah, exactly right. Unclear, by the way, whether they're going to participate in the World Cup. The Iranian team, I think, qualified for it, but there's some dispute. So shocking events in a lot of respects, in the sense that Trump actually did what a lot of presidents have threatened to do over the course of decades. Remember, Bill Clinton did this. Barack Obama did this. Certainly George W. Bush did this. But Donald Trump, the first president who has actually taken aggressive military action against Iran. And it's not just a pinprick. I mean, he's going for the jugular. This is a full decapitation of the Iranian leadership. And Marco Rubio laid out the case for why this had to happen at this particular time. Let's go to cut number one.
There would come a point where they have so many conventional missiles, so many drones, and it can inflict so much damage that no one can do anything about their nuclear program. That is what they were trying to do, is put themselves in a place of immunity where the damage they could inflict on the region would be so high that no one can do anything about their nuclear program or their nuclear ambitions. They are producing, by some estimates, over 100 of these missiles a month. Compare that to the 6 or 7 interceptors that can be built a month. They can build 100 of these a month, not to mention the thousands of one-way attack drones that they also have. They've been doing this for a very long time, and by the way, they've been doing it under sanction. You see the attacks they're conducting right now? They're attacking airports, they're attacking hotels, they're hitting not just military bases, they're attacking our embassies directly, they're attacking facilities that have nothing to do with war or with military, and that's a weekend Iran. That's in Iran despite years of sanction. Imagine a year from now, or a year and a half from now, the capabilities they would have to inflict damage on us. It's an unacceptable risk, especially in the hands of a regime that's run by radical clerics. The Ayatollah was a radical cleric. That entire regime is led by radical clerics who don't make geopolitical decisions. They make decisions on the basis of theology, their view of theology, which is an apocalyptic one. That has to be taken very seriously as well.
Nice change from the present tense to the past tense when discussing the Ayatollah. No, I think Marco Rubio lays it out quite well, because to your point, this has been something that many presidents have spoken about, but Donald Trump acted on. And your friend, Washington Post columnist Mark Thiessen, wrote something about, he says, Donald Trump is not starting a forever war in Iran, he is ending one. And I thought it was an interesting perspective, because the biggest pushback you heard from within conservative circles, I don't like to use the term MAGA, but there are many people who remember and are haunted by the ghost of the Iraq war, the Afghanistan war, the lives and the talent and the treasure that were lost there. But Mark Thiessen, I think, kind of lays this out. And I thought it was very, very smart. He goes, the Iranian threat, which you just heard Marco Rubio talk about, is the primary reason the United States has to spend billions of dollars on large deployments in the Middle East. If that danger is eliminated and a new government, one whose mantra is no longer death to America, takes power in Tehran, the United States can finally draw down those forces. FDR, he compares, like, in a historical perspective, I'm interested in what your response to this is. FDR defeated the Nazis. Reagan beat the communists. Can Trump defeat the radical Islamists in Iran? And if he does so, then, like, what does that say about his position in history? And is what happened this week with the help of Israel, a step towards putting his legacy in an entirely new stratosphere?
Yeah, I mean, Trump has said something clearly from the beginning, and he said it even before he was president, which is Iran cannot have a nuclear bomb. And there's always this question about how close they are. Intelligence gives you some perspective, right, on how close they might be. There have been reports, I think it was Steve Wyckoff, one of the negotiators, saying that the Iranians were bragging in the negotiations that they had, I think it was 60 pounds of enriched uranium.
Enough to make 11 nuclear weapons. systems. And he said, and the quote was, "That's our starting point." This is what the Iranian negotiator said. We have this capacity to do this now. We're not going backwards from there.
Yeah. So part of, I think, what was going on from the Iranian standpoint is they were assuming Trump was going to handle it the way every previous president had, which is was going to talk tough and not really act. In fact, let's play cut number 2. This is an Iranian general with the Iranian Revolutionary Guards on February the 10th. And Eric's going to provide the translation. But this is what he said about America being the paper tiger vis-a-vis a military threat.
امریکا حتما شکست خورده است. امریکا ناتوان از هر تعرضی باید بره داخل خودش رو جمع کنه. همون لشکرکشی‌هایی که داخل ایالت خودش می‌کنه بره اونها رو جمع کنه. مسئولای ما چجوری میتونن آمریکا رو مایوس بکنن؟ امریکا دیگه مایوس هست. امروز سرافکنده دنیاست. رئیس جمهورش پرونده فساد اپستینشه. روابطش با صمیمی‌ترین دوستاش که اروپا و کانادا اینا باشن در آستانه جنگ.
Our commitment to journalism is so complete, Peter Schweizer. We played that entire audio clips, lest anything in that language be taken out of context for those that do know the difference. So that general, who is General Mohammad Reza Nagdi, is a senior advisor to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commander-in-chief. He said there, even if the U.S. deploys all 12 of its aircraft carriers near us, it won't be able to do a damn thing. America has certainly been defeated and is incapable of any aggression. Therefore, it should focus on its own domestic affairs. It should complete the deployment of National Guard in its own states. America is currently, this is my favorite part, drowning in frustration and global humiliation. The U.S. president is currently mired in the Epstein corruption scandals. I like how everyone, even in Iran, they're talking Epstein. Also, America's closest allies, like Canada and Europe, have deteriorated to a level that is on the brink of war. The United States is finished. That was the quote from several weeks ago.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. 2 things enter into that. Number one, he's probably watching too much MS Now or MSNBC, right? Because he's buying into the whole sort of paper tiger thing. But the second thing is, this is what happens when you have previous presidents that are always telling Iran, don't cross that line or else. And they cross the line and we do nothing. Eventually, they think every American president is going to be that way. So it's very interesting to me. And I think Mark Thiessen makes a very, very good and important point. And the reason that this is different, I think, than Iraq and Afghanistan is we used to have what Colin Powell, Secretary of State, General, called the Pottery Bond rule. If you break it, you own it. In other words, if you go in and invade a country, you need to rebuild it. Guess what? Donald Trump walked into Pottery Barn. He knocked a bunch of things over and said, I'm not paying for anything. In other words, because of the threat that Iran represents, we do not have an obligation to go in and try to rebuild that country. We are eliminating the threat. We're going to encourage the right people in Iran to win. Whether they decide to step up and do that or not is their own internal business.
Colin Powell says, you break it, you bought it. Halliburton says, we're comfortable with that. We accept those terms for the next 2 decades. But it does speak to, there are different interests at play now. And so, it's kind of, we're going to spend a little bit of time going through what this very significant event has done. As you noted, like this, we're having a very different conversation a month ago. Yeah. Now this happens. And so
who are the winners and losers? Yeah. I want to know who the winners and losers are.
It's impacting a lot of different people, right? So I would say, to your point, one of the big losers are Iranian negotiation tactics. Apparently don't lead with the old 11 nukes thing.
The art of the deal Iranian version.
Ooh, no, not so great. Iranian state TV, also not a winner. Yeah. But there are some winners, one of whom is, I think, the Trump doctrine, as we're noting. Another winner, and this is just interesting. It's just like this, we're just presenting information as we do. If the cases were reversed, we would still present this information. Saudi Arabia, I think it has to be said, major winner in this case.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we're used to thinking of the Middle East in the context of Israel and Arabs. They're at war, they're at each other's throats. What you're seeing under the new leadership in Saudi Arabia, the crown prince that has emerged, he's much more modern. He is improving things within the country, especially for women, allowing them to do things like, actually drive a car. He is liberalizing in a way, but he is also taking a more pro-Western position, and he's not signed on to the Abraham Accords with Israel, but he's much more cooperative with Israel than Saudi leaders in the past. So, yeah, Saudi Arabia is a big winner, as are those other Gulf area states, the United Arab Emirates. So I think what Trump often does, he's done this domestically in terms of the way he rejiggers politics. He's doing this now in the Middle East, the way we traditionally think about the Middle East as, Arab and Israeli conflict. It's not so simple anymore. You had the Saudis that were apparently supportive of attacking Iran. You had the United Arab Emirates that was supportive. You had Israel that was supportive. When was the last time you got those three powers on the same side for aggressive action? So this is, I think, further evidence that the Middle East is reconstituting itself.
I will just bring this up. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but you have written any number of books about the son of the president, that is Hunter Biden, and the money he made based on different global affairs, partly because of the actions his father took when he was in a position of power. So it's worth pointing out, Jared Kushner was one of the lead negotiators in terms of dealing with Iran on this situation. Now, it's also been reported that he has a private equity fund called Affinity Partners. The largest investor in his private equity firm is the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund. They have $2 billion in Jared Kushner's private equity fund. And so, Kushner is going to make $100+ million over the tenure of this relationship. Saudi Arabia is paying Jared Kushner. He's leading negotiations with Iran. Saudi Arabia is in favor of the military action we just took against Iran. Your reaction? Yeah,
and you've also got, by the way, the crypto business, right? Mm-hmm. The Don Jr. is involved in. That's being funded by Middle Eastern interests as well. No, it's a huge problem. I mean, this is not good. It's not a good look. I don't think it's a good influence. And what they are going to say is we are different than Hunter Biden because we actually have a business, right? These are businesses. Jared Kushner and his family, they've been in the private equity business for decades. But the problem is you're still intermingling political power and influence with your business interests. It doesn't matter if you had a legitimate business before. So it's a huge problem. I think it's a mistake. I wish that Trump would put his foot down on this. And I think at a minimum, you should not have Jared Kushner involved in government negotiations as long as he is doing business deals with the people that he's negotiating with. It's totally unacceptable.
Like big business deals.
Yes.
We thought $1.5 billion in China for Hunter Biden was a big deal. He's got $2 billion of Saudi Arabian money.
Yeah. And again, what the Saudis are going to say is, hey, the Kushners, their investments, they own a lot of real estate. They make a lot of money. That's not the point. The point is it looks bad, and the ability to use it as a means of influence over administration policy, I think, is just a terrible look. But I agree with you. Saudi Arabia is a winner. Iran has been their longtime regional rival. They have done what the United States has done. They've tried to appease Iran and hope that things would improve, that Iran would stop on this course. It didn't happen. So they are big winners along with Israel and the other Gulf states.
Well, in Israel, and I think Israeli intelligence specifically, we still don't have firm reporting on the details of exactly how they're able to do this, but some of the reports that are surfacing are just impressive, to say the least.
Yeah, no, it's I thought the pagers was majorly impressive what they did against the terrorists. In this particular case, a lot of stories floating around. Some have not been fully confirmed, but there are reports, for example, that the Israeli intelligence hacked into the traffic cameras in Tehran, and they would actually be able to trace the leadership that the Ayatollah, his car, when he was driving around Tehran, they would know where he would be. They would know where senior intelligence officials would be. There's another report, which is probably harder to believe, that allegedly they had infiltrated the dental industry in Tehran, and that they were actually, putting fillings and things into leaders so they could track the movements of leaders.
Not hacking just traffic cameras, but hacking people.
Yes, exactly. Don't know if that's true, but what do they say in Israel? Mossad. It's never an accident. That's the so the mere fact that these ideas are being discussed and it involves Mossad, you're saying it's possible because they've done amazing stuff in the past, and it further proves how powerful and effective they are in this space.
Well, so powerful that on Saturday they took out the Ayatollah and the senior leadership in Iran. Iran, and this has been reported today, they had a meeting today to select the new leadership. So Israel is now claiming they wiped out what's left of Iran's leadership because they attacked that meeting as well. I don't know that I buy that that's just a traffic camera situation, which you know, it's enough for me to declare, okay, Israel's a winner, you know, as a loser, dentists. Iranian dentists, they can never be trusted again.
By the way, and I would just have one suggestion for the Iranian leadership, not that I want them to succeed.
Could we have done this on Zoom?
Well, exactly. Why are we gathering together in one space after what's happened over the last 5 days? Hey guys, let's call a meeting. I mean, am I missing something here? Let's do this on Zoom or, you know, 1-800 conference call or something.
Right. I'm pretty sure the sanctions still allow for Slack or Trello in Iran. It seems like we would have been a safer move. Last winner that we have, and you're the one that pointed this out, and I looked into it, and it's interesting, defense stocks, and maybe Palantir specifically.
Yeah, particularly AI. I mean, it's very interesting. We're having this big conversation in our country right now about AI, how decisions are going to make. You had this big dispute between the Department of Defense and Anthropic, where basically Secretary of War Hegseth said, hey, we're not going to deal with you guys because you're not going to make decisions about how this technology is used. We are. But this is a clear example, the way that this war is being fought, the precision with which it's being fought, the intensity of the amount of munitions. I mean, you think that Iran is launching hundreds, if not thousands of drones at any given time. You cannot have the human capacity to absorb all of that. You're going to have to rely on AI. So you're going to see, I think, the debate over AI and the importance of AI in fighting wars is going to increase, enhance, and that is certainly going to help certain technology companies. And I think we're going to have further fallout into where our defense budget goes in the future as it relates to these kinds of technologies.
My favorite thing that I learned from looking into the impact of defense stocks in this new conflict, there is, and you may already know this, but there's a U.S. Global Technology and Aerospace Defense ETF. And so you can invest just like in this ETF that's all these defense stocks, and it trades under the stock ticker of war.
Yes. There's one called War, and there's another one called Jedi, which is kind of interesting.
I have questions. So those will be winners. The stocks went up big on Monday. They kind of backed down today a little bit, but we'll see how that goes. So those are the winners. But there are, of course, in any battle, in any potential war, there are also losers.
Right.
We mentioned Iranian negotiators. Another loser is, I think, failed assassination attempts.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why we end up in this spot. The Iranian regime has attempted a number of terrorist attacks and assassination efforts on U.S. soil. They tried to go after Mike Pompeo. They've allegedly been involved with plots to go after Donald Trump. Not successful, but those are part of the rationale this administration is using to justify what we did this weekend.
Yeah, the old saying was speak softly and carry a big stick. Iran's position has been yell loudly and carry a twig, right? They don't have a terribly sophisticated, thank goodness, ability to go out and conduct sophisticated assassinations. Mossad has that. Iran does not. But by announcing these fatwas publicly that we are going to kill President Trump, we are going to kill Mike Pompeo, we are going to kill Salman Rushdie, we're going to kill all these people, and then there are attempts that occur, that's, spreads panic and clearly indicates that these guys are a threat. So again, a clear example of engaging in all kinds of bravado, not backing it up to their own detriment. So big losers.
I'm reminded of one of those phrases, if you're going to shoot at the king, you best not miss. The Ayatollah missed, Donald Trump did not.
Yeah.
And, I think you kind of see where things are. You flagged this yesterday. Another kind of loser. It's interesting to hear some of the mashing, the complaining. Congress. Yeah. Congress may be a little bit of a loser because they're going on TV and whining. Nobody told us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's a good reason why they didn't tell them, by the way. So the rule is you're supposed to alert, I think it's the top 8 leaders in the House and the Senate. That includes the leadership and the chairman and the minority leaders of the intelligence committees in both the House and the Senate. You're supposed to alert them all. They got like last minute calls and they weren't able to reach a couple of them. So there's been a lot of screaming about like, oh, we need to have more discussion. We need to have more debate. Part of it is the security of the operation, right? You can't be telling everybody this is going on. The additional problem, though, is, and I find this really interesting in light of insider trading and Congress and all that, is the ability for people to profit off of this. This is really interesting because we have these prediction markets, right, that are out there. You can predict all kinds of things, not just who's going to win a sporting event. And you've had examples already of people trying to cash in. There is a case, they still have not identified who it was, somebody who called almost by the minute the time that Maduro was abducted by the U.S. military. That person put down $30,000, walked away with $400,000. There's another example, I think, of an Israeli military officer who apparently was betting in the prediction markets and making big money based on offensive military operations. So it's not just a security issue. It's you are now incentivized to try to cash in these prediction markets. So I think it's a terrible idea to inform a lot of people about these operations.
Yeah, it was an Israel Army reservist who was arrested for using sensitive information to bet on some of these markets about those strikes against the Islamic Nation. They also, the Wall Street Journal reported, there's a crypto analytics firm found 6 suspected insiders who'd made $1.2 million wagering on a U.S. strike through Polymarket.
Wow.
Most of them bet on a strike by February 28th, which is, of course, the exact date that they struck. So to your point, like Congress gets upset about this thing. I mean, this is not how many pizzas did the Pentagon order.
Right.
This is, real money is being bet and real money is being made to the point where you've got like senior U.S. officials calling on Kalshi and Polymarket saying, you've got to get rid of the ability to bet on whether or not someone is killed.
Right.
I mean, that's like the next conversation we're having about this. It's bizarre. It's weird. You talk about how much things change in the month. So that's, so Congress a little bit of a loser.
And think, by the way, just think about this for a second. You might have somebody who's a congressional staffer who, doesn't want to help our enemies, doesn't want to leak this information, but is having financial trouble. Mm-hmm. So they start making bets, and there are people that are tracking these betting markets and seeing which trades are being made. So it's a security risk. That's the problem. People are making money off of it, and it incentivizes people to act on that information. So it's an enormous problem, and I think that reform is an excellent idea.
Yeah. So 2 more losers at least, maybe 3. Mm-hmm. This one's my favorite of all the losers. The lovable loser, our good friend, your potential competitor on the New York Times bestseller list, Gavin Newsom, big loser.
So how's he a loser in all this?
Well, you know this. I mean, and look, my first thought, I hate to say it, this is how long I've worked with Peter Schweizer. My first thought when we struck Iran is, man, if this had happened a month ago, it would have, just because of the way that things eat up attention. It would have negatively impacted your ability for your book to make the news it did.
That's true.
So Peter Schweizer, low-key winner in this. Gavin Newsom's a loser because Gavin Newsom's book came out last Tuesday, less than a week before the Iranian strikes occur. Guess how much people are looking into and caring about Gavin Newsom's book right now?
Not a lot?
Not a lot. I looked at some Google search trends. His search for Gavin Newsom peaked on February 24th, February 25th. It's now less than 10% of what it was.
Wow. But I'm assuming there's a lot of astute observations about Middle East politics in this book, right?
I don't think so. I think it's mostly baseball and SAT stories.
It's about himself. Okay.
But listen to this, never to be outdone. He did release a statement about this conflict because he's also attempting to look presidential.
Yeah.
He says, the corrupt and repressive Iranian regime must never have nuclear weapons. The leadership of Iran must go. This sounds like every other president before Donald Trump.
Yeah, that's pretty bold. So he's in favor of the strikes.
But that does not justify, he continues, the president of the United States engaging in an illegal and dangerous war that will risk the lives of American service members and our friends without justification to the American people. President Trump is putting Americans at risk abroad because he's unpopular at home. As this unfolds, this is the key, California stands with, who do you think California stands with? As this unfolds, California stands with
the Iranian people?
The Iranian American community in our state, recognizing they have many friends and loved ones who have fought bravely to chart their own future to end decades of state violence and denial of basic rights.
I love, by the way, where he says, this is a brutal regime. It needs to be gone. It needs to be taken out. I mean, the left really does believe that words are weapons, right? I mean, he must think that somehow is going to accomplish anything.
So Gavin Newsom, his book sales, which was going to be, in some ways a vehicle and a key for his presidential aspirations, negatively impacted by this. So he's a loser. Speaking of book aspirations, your book, Invisible Coup, which did achieve #1 on the New York Times bestseller list for a number of weeks, you in your book actually write about Iran and one of their favorite U.S. politicians, Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, she is a big loser in this, I think, as well. Very interesting because, she came to Congress in 2018. She got a lot of support from these organizations like the National Iranian-American Council, which has supported her financially. They've given her awards. That's an organization that was created either directly or indirectly by the Iranian regime. And there was even a biography written.
This is crazy to me.
Yeah, there was a biography written about Ilhan Omar in Iran. And guess what? They like her. It's called Ilhan Omar, The Voice of the Muslims in a Colonist Society. It was published by a government-backed publisher in Iran, sold quite well. Of course, a lot of censorship in Iran, so books only come out if the regime really wants you to be able to read them. So,
like Donald Trump's biography, not available for sale in Tehran.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be interesting to see. You've got all these people, the progressive left, people like Ilhan Omar, AOC, who supportive of, slightly critical of the Iranian regime and the Venezuelan regime, but protective of them. Both of those regimes are essentially gone or are fading away. It's going to be very interesting if those governments undergo a change, archival information comes out. What kind of dealings did they have with those governments? Because they did, for example, visit Venezuela. They did have contact with Venezuelan officials. Be really interesting. It reminds me back when the Berlin Wall came down and all those archives came out from the Soviet Union. And you saw all these American politicians who had been talking nice to the Soviets.
That's what it reminds me of. You're the one that talked about how Jimmy Carter went to and spoke to the Soviet Union and said, listen, I can help you get you some dirt on Ronald Reagan, right?
Yeah.
So it would have been quite scandalous. You talk about Venezuelan officials. How many U.S. officials do you think Iran is talking to over the last time?
Oh, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Last loser for us, China.
Yeah, China's a big loser. Venezuela and Iran, of course, big allies to China. Combined, I think they provide roughly 20% of China's oil production. China needs to import their oil. 90% of their oil is imported. They just don't have a lot of domestic. And they've got two big allies now that are teetering. Iran is not going to be the power that it was before. It's not going to be a proxy that China can use in any way. Same thing in Venezuela. So big loser for China. And, you could posit that's really the big picture thing here with Trump, right? That there are legitimate national security reasons, the threat from Iran to undergo this military action. But if you look at it as a global chessboard, you could argue that a lot of the things Trump is doing in Mexico, Venezuela, and Iran directly have a negative impact on China. And Trump has been saying for more than 20 years that the major challenge to the United States that we face on the global stage is the People's Republic of China.
And so obviously this negatively impacts them. It's also worth pointing out, you have this book, it's largely focused on Mexico, but you do talk about Iran and the role they've played in helping facilitate this kind of invasion via migration. You obviously talk about China. Iran's biggest embassy in the world happens to be in Mexico City. So, there's been, I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how Mexico responds as well. They're obviously dealing with their own cartel violence at the moment. So it's just your book. I'm not just saying this because I work with you, but it happens to be true. Your book continues to, I think, lay out and point out some very significant facts that will inform an understanding of what's happening in the news right now. So, best of luck and continued success on the book. And we'll see how it's going. Been a very busy couple weeks, Peter Schweizer.
It's been a couple of busy weeks. Really quick, who's next? Who do we attack next? Is there somebody else on the horizon? Do you expect Cuba, pressure on Cuba?
A lot of people say Cuba, but no, is two not enough? Can we Iran and Venezuela? I think we just started. This is you're part of the insatiable bloodlust of this neocon crowd.
I'm just imagining those concert T-shirts, right? Like the Rolling Stones, and they list the cities on the back of the dates. Trump is building up to a Trump World Tour T-shirt that's going to have listing, the military actions he's taking around the globe.
Well, we used to employ somebody who used to talk about VRIC, V-R-I-C, and I'd never heard that acronym before, but it stood for, and it's something that people that paid attention to the international affairs, this is like the axis they look. Yeah. V-R-I-C, Venezuela, Russia, Iran, China.
Yeah.
And this has been a power center for a long time. Two of them are now dealt with.
Yeah.
So you talk about who's next. who's left, I guess is what I would say.
Well, we'll see what happens. A lot of tumultuous world events. We're going to continue to follow that. Of course, follow events in Washington. We appreciate you, as always, taking the time to listen to this podcast. You can go to thedrilldown.com to see the research that we're doing. Please pick up a copy of my book, and please consider subscribing to this podcast. Thanks again. Until next time.